What if I told you that a coin with a face value of only 25 cents could become a fascinating collectible because of one tiny line near a horse's mouth? Welcome back to Old Coins Explorer, where we search for the real history, varieties, errors, and hidden value behind ordinary-looking coins. Today we are examining a 1999 United States Washington Quarter, and this is not just any ordinary quarter. This coin is the Delaware State Quarter, the very first issue released in the famous 50 State Quarters program. The P mint mark tells us that this particular coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. But the most exciting feature collectors look for on this issue is a famous die-crack variety known as the spitting horse. That nickname comes from a raised line that can appear to come directly from the horse's mouth on the reverse. At first glance, it can look like the horse is literally spitting, which is exactly what made this variety so popular with collectors. However, there is an important difference between a genuine mint-made die crack and an ordinary scratch caused after the coin left the mint. So in this video, we are going to examine the coin's history, design, mint mark, specifications, famous variety, condition, and realistic value without exaggerating its worth. Identifying the coin. Let us begin with the basic identification, because identifying a coin correctly is the first step before discussing rarity or value. The coin shown in these photographs is a United States 25-cent Washington Quarter dated 1999 with the Philadelphia P mint mark. The reverse identifies it as the Delaware State Quarter, featuring Caesar Rodney riding a horse. The coin belongs to the 50 State Quarters program, which began in 1999 and eventually honored all 50 states. Delaware was the first state represented in the series because it was the first state to ratify the United States Constitution on December 7, 1787. That historical connection is represented on the coin by the inscription, "The First State." The obverse carries the traditional portrait of George Washington along with Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date 1999. The reverse carries Delaware, 1787, the first state, and E pluribus unum, together with the dramatic horseback design. NGC lists the 1999 Delaware Quarter as a Philadelphia minted coin with a mintage of 373,400,000 pieces. That large mintage means the normal coin is not rare simply because it is from 1999, so collectors must look at condition and genuine varieties to determine whether a particular example deserves a premium. The history behind the Delaware design. The reverse of this quarter tells a very interesting story from the American Revolution. The figure shown on horseback is Caesar Rodney, an important Delaware statesman and supporter of independence. According to the historical story represented by the design, Rodney made a difficult journey from Dover toward Philadelphia during the summer of 1776. He was needed in Philadelphia because Delaware's delegation was divided over the question of independence. Rodney arrived in time to participate in the Continental Congress and cast his vote in favor of independence. That is why his horseback journey became an important symbol in Delaware history and eventually became the central image of the state quarter. The top of the reverse identifies the state with the word Delaware, while 1787 represents the year Delaware ratified the Constitution. The inscription, "The First State," emphasizes Delaware's famous nickname and its place at the beginning of the constitutional ratification process. The design was created for the State Quarters program by William Cousins, while the Washington obverse is associated with John Flanagan and William Cousins. So even before we discuss the possible error, this quarter is historically important because it was the very first state quarter released to the American public. Mint mark, composition, size, and specifications. Now let us look at the technical details, because these details help prove exactly which coin we have. The P mint mark on the obverse identifies the Philadelphia Mint, and that is especially important when discussing the spitting horse variety. The standard 1999 Delaware Quarter has a diameter of approximately 24.3 millimeters. Its standard weight is approximately 5.67 grams, and the edge is reeded, just like other modern U.S. quarters. The circulation version is a copper nickel-clad copper coin rather than a solid silver coin. The overall composition is approximately 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel, with the nickel-copper alloy forming the outer cladding. This is important because some online videos describe every old or unusual-looking quarter as a silver coin. But this particular 1999p Delaware circulation quarter is not a silver quarter. The face value issued by the United States government is exactly 25 cents, regardless of whether a collector later pays more for a variety or high-grade example. The Philadelphia mintage of 373.4 million coins also explains why ordinary circulated examples are generally inexpensive. In other words, the potential collector interest here does not come from the date alone. It comes from the specific variety, the strength of the die crack, and the preservation of the individual coin. The famous spitting horse variety. Now we come to the feature that makes this coin especially interesting for error and variety collectors. The famous spitting horse is associated with a die crack on certain 1999p Delaware quarters. A die is the hardened metal tool used to strike the design onto blank coins, and these dies experience enormous pressure during production. When a die develops a crack, metal from the planchet can flow into that crack during striking. The result can be a raised line on the finished coin rather than a line cut down into the surface. On the Delaware Quarter, one famous crack can appear to extend from the horse's mouth area toward the lettering around Caesar Rodney. Because the raised line looks like a stream coming from the horse's mouth, collectors gave the variety the memorable nickname spitting horse. This is why the feature has become one of the best-known varieties associated with the early State Quarters series. It is important, however, to call it a die crack or die break variety, rather than automatically calling every line an error coin worth hundreds of dollars. The strength and exact appearance of the line can vary from coin to coin, because a die can continue changing as more pieces are struck. Does your coin actually have the spitting horse? Looking specifically at the photographs you provided, the reverse clearly shows the 1999 Delaware design, and the Philadelphia P is visible on the Washington side. There also appears to be an unusual raised-looking feature in the area around the horse's mouth, which is exactly the area collectors examine for the spitting horse variety. However, a photograph alone is not enough to guarantee that a line is a genuine die crack. The most important test is whether the feature is raised above the surrounding surface, rather than being a groove scratched into the coin. A genuine die crack should normally appear as raised metal because the crack in the die became filled during the striking process. A post-mint scratch usually removes or cuts into the coin's surface, making the line incuse rather than raised. For your coin, I would therefore describe it as a possible spitting horse variety based on the photographs, rather than claiming with absolute certainty that it has been authenticated. A 5 to 10 times loop or microscope would make the feature much easier to evaluate and would allow you to see whether the line has the correct raised structure. If you want a professional attribution, a reputable coin dealer or error variety specialist can examine the coin in person, and certification can provide additional confidence. That distinction is extremely important for a YouTube video because responsible coin collecting is about proving the variety, not simply assuming that every unusual line is a valuable mint error. Condition and realistic value. Now let us talk about the question almost every viewer will ask. How much is this 1999p Delaware Quarter actually worth? The honest answer is that the value depends heavily on condition, the strength of the variety, and whether the coin has been authenticated or certified. NGC currently lists ordinary circulated 1999p Delaware State Quarters in the general range of about 30 to 40 cents, depending on condition. NGC also shows substantially higher values for exceptional mint state examples, with its guide reaching as high as $300 for the highest listed grade. Those high numbers should not be interpreted as the value of every 1999p quarter, because most circulated examples are nowhere near that level of preservation. PCGS records an auction result of $4,888 for a 1999p Delaware Quarter graded MS66, showing how exceptional condition can dramatically change the market. That auction record is for a highly graded coin and should not be used as the expected price for a worn coin found in circulation. For the spitting horse variety specifically, collector market prices can vary widely depending on how clear and dramatic the die crack is. Published collecting references commonly place circulated examples in the several dollar to several tens of dollars range, but actual sales can differ substantially from one coin to another. Therefore, if your coin has a genuine and clearly visible spitting horse die crack, it can be worth more than a normal circulated quarter, but I would not claim that this particular photograph coin is worth hundreds of dollars without professional examination and grading. What collectors should check before selling? Before anyone rushes to sell a coin like this, there are several important things that should be checked carefully. First, confirm the date is 1999 and the mint mark is P, because the famous spitting horse variety is specifically associated with Philadelphia minted Delaware Quarters. Second, inspect the reverse under magnification and concentrate on the horse's mouth and the area leading toward the lettering. Third, determine whether the suspected line is raised, because a raised die crack is very different from an ordinary scratch. Fourth, examine the rest of the coin for additional errors, die cracks, chips, unusual doubling, missing design details, or other abnormalities. Fifth, look at the overall condition because scratches, cleaning, heavy wear, stains, and contact marks can significantly reduce collector appeal. Do not polish or clean the coin to make it look brighter, because cleaning can damage the original surface and may reduce its desirability to collectors. If the variety appears strong, compare it with documented examples and consider having the coin examined by a qualified numismatist. Certification from a respected grading service can be useful when a coin appears valuable enough to justify the cost of professional authentication and grading. The biggest lesson is simple. Never pay or sell based only on a viral price claim. Identify the variety, verify the feature, evaluate the condition, and then compare genuine market evidence. Final verdict and YouTube closing. So, after examining the coin from the photographs, we can confidently identify the main coin as a 1999 P Delaware State Quarter, struck at Philadelphia with a reported mintage of 373.4 million pieces. Its normal face value is 25 cents, and ordinary circulated examples are generally not rare. What makes your example interesting is the unusual feature around the horse's mouth that resembles the famous spitting horse die crack variety. The photographs make this feature worth investigating, but they do not provide enough evidence for me to guarantee professional attribution from an image alone. The key test is whether the suspected line is genuinely raised and follows the known die crack characteristics rather than being a post-mint scratch. If it passes that test, then you may have a collectible variety that deserves to be separated from ordinary Delaware Quarters. The value will still depend on the coin's condition, the strength of the crack, market demand, and whether the variety is professionally authenticated. And remember, the famous auction prices for top-grade 1999 P Delaware Quarters belong to exceptional certified coins, not every example found in pocket change. This is exactly why coin hunting is so exciting. Sometimes the most interesting discovery is not a rare date, but a tiny mint-made feature hiding in plain sight. If you enjoyed this investigation, subscribe to Old Coins Explorer, share this video with another coin hunter, and keep checking your change, because the next unusual coin might already be sitting in your pocket.